Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of What's Up with yours truly, Dr. A. Nathan Young. Listen, it's been a year already since we started this journey, and I just want to thank you for your support, for your love, and for tuning in every week to hear what God has to say to our hearts. We're about to go into another one of our services, and I hope that you're blessed by it. I hope that God meets you right where you are, and that He says something to change your life. Meet me right back here in 26 minutes. Can't wait to see you.
I really believe that this series is going to change somebody's life. It's called Bloopers, When Life Doesn't Go as Planned. And real quick, y'all got to let me know, am I the only one whose life doesn't always go as planned? Is there anybody else in the house? Can I see? Okay, all right, put your hands down. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was at the right church. Raise your hand in here if you are an instruction reader. You go to the store, you buy an end table, you buy a chair, you get a new appliance, whatever, and you read the instructions while you try to assemble it. Come on, let me see your hands. If you're watching TV, let us see your hands, even though we can't see your hands. Keep them up, keep them up, keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. All right, everybody who don't have your hand up, look at the person closest to you who has their hand up and say, nerd. Instructions are for people who don't like adventure. Those of us who like adventure, those of us who like to figure stuff out, we don't need no instructions. Why? Because the fun is in figuring it what? And we like adventure, so we don't mind taking 3 or 4 trips to the store, standing at the exchange counter going, hey, they had some stuff missing. We like adventure. In my house, Joyce is the instruction reader. I'm the one who don't need no instructions. And I'll never forget when we moved into the first house we built, we went and bought a TV to hang on over our mantle. And we went and got a mount for it. And, normal people, for that kind of thing, would call somebody who know what they're doing. At least they would call their cousin Bookie, who think he know what he doing. Not us. We decided to make a night of it. So we got the TV and we got the mount. And I'll never forget, it's like a Friday night or whatever, one of the nights we have family time, we decide we're going to do this together. So I walk in the living room after I get home from work, and what is she doing? She's doing what any instruction reader is going to do before they attempt something. She's reading the what? So I look at her, she got all the tools laid out. I said, what's all that? She said, that's all the stuff we need for this project. I'm like, girl, this ain't no project. We putting a TV on the wall, and we putting it on a mount. This is not a project. This is simple. We don't need no instructions. She kept reading the instructions. I proceed to put the mount up on the wall. I mean, Brother Bill, how hard can it be? Couple of screws, zhoop, zhoop. It's up there. Take the TV and put it on the mount. So after I went and bought the 4th mount from Best Buy, true story, we finally got the TV mounted, and this ended up taking like 2 days. I ended up buying like 4 mounts. It was crazy, and I could have saved myself a whole lot of heartache if I had just read the what? The instructions, but I didn't read the instructions, and so I had to do it not just over, but I had to do it over and what? And the first time, we really could have left it like it was, because I mean, the TV was up on the wall. The only problem with it is it had a little gangster lean. TV looked like it had been drinking. So she made me take it down. I was just going to watch it like this, but she said it wasn't working for her. And we don't mind. Do-overs are fine when it comes down to TV mounts, when it comes down to end tables, when it comes down to chairs, when it comes down to other little stuff like toys at Christmas time and all that good stuff. They're fine for that kind of stuff. But do-overs take on a whole nother face when it comes to real life. And I suspect that a lot of people like myself, whether it's been financially, whether it's been relationally, whether it's been as a parent, whether it's been on the job, in your career, or where have you, I suspect that most people are just like me, where you've been forced to have some do-overs in your life. I mean, you just don't get it right the first time, or something happens and it doesn't work out like you thought it was going to work out the first time. And what I want to speak to through this entire series is how to handle the do-over. In other words, how to restart when the last start got messed up. How to get started again when the last get started again didn't go like it was supposed to go. And a lot of times we end up asking ourselves, how in the world did I get myself into this situation again? How in the world do I find myself in this same place all over again? And the first thing I want to tell you is you're asking the right question. And the reason why I say you're asking the right question is because in all of your do-overs, in all of the stuff that you had to try again, whether it was a relationship or on your job, or whether it was in your education, or whether it was in your finances, there's one common denominator. There's one common factor that was in all of your decisions. There's one common factor that's been there for all of your do-overs. There's one common factor that has been with you for the entirety of your life. And the reason why you're asking the right question when you say, how did I get myself back into this situation, is because that common factor is, everybody go like this, point at me. Come on, everybody. Come on, this is a participant. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Point at me, come on. Now turn it and do a 180. That's the common factor. Listen, you're the problem. It's not the people on your job. It's not the other person in the relationship. No, it won't get better if you could just get rid of these kids. Because the problem with the kids is you just want to get rid of these kids. You are the what? You're the problem. You're the common denominator. And listen, this is why this is important. Where you say, well, I didn't hurt me, Pastor. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. You're the problem when it comes down to getting the do-over right. Because at the end of the day, regardless of whose fault it is, you've got decisions to make. And a lot of times the reason why we end up in the same situation is because when that person did what they did to us, or that job, or this just didn't work out, we end up making the wrong decisions over and over and over. Because get this, everybody into each life some rain must fall. And the difference between the people who eventually get it right and the people who never do is whether or not you're first willing to own up to the fact that I am the reason for where I'm at in my life. And for so many of us, we blame everybody else. And we never take a look at ourselves. Today, I want to look at three things that you probably believe. 3 myths that I want to dispel. First myth is the myth that says experience is the best what? How many have heard that before? How many believe that? Only reason y'all ain't raising your hand because I just said it was a myth. Experience is not the best teacher. It's not the best teacher. Pastor White, you said, when I was in the military, when I went in the Air Force, never forget that one of my drill sergeants told me, he said, Airman Young, he said, you got one or two choices in my Air Force. He said, you can either sit back and see a bunch of examples, or you can jump out there head first and become one. That stuck with me. See, you don't have to experience it in order to learn from it. And then watch this. Just because you experience it, don't mean you're gonna learn from it. How you know that, Pastor? Well, come on. Everybody knows some old fools. Am I lying about it? Everybody knows some people who've been living their life the same way for years and years and what? And they got all of the life experience in the world, the knocks upside the head, the beat downs, the whole 9 yards that life brings when you don't make the right choices, and yet they're however old in your eyes, and they still have not what? Learned. So this idea that experience is the best teacher couldn't be further from the truth. Experience is not the best teacher. Watch Proverbs 24 and 30. Watch what it says. It says, I passed by the field of the sluggard. In other words, the field of the lazy person. And by the vineyard of the man lacking what? This person ain't got no sense. And behold, it was completely overgrown by what? With thistles. What does that mean? The ground is not ready to plant. Why? Because this person is not using their good sense and they're being lazy. It says its surface was covered with what? Nettles, and its stone wall was broken what? So this person doesn't have any protection for their field. Why? Because they've been a sluggard and they're not operating with sense. But then, watch what happens, 32. When I saw, I reflected upon it. I looked and I received what? First thing he did was he says, I saw it. In other words, this is not what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm watching somebody else experience. He says, and here's what I did with what I saw somebody else go through. He says, I did what? Reflected upon it. In other words, I thought about it. Can I tell you the number one reason why experience is not the best teacher? The reason why is because John Maxwell said that experience is not the best teacher, get it, but evaluated experience is the best teacher. Because a whole lot of people see stuff, a whole lot of people experience stuff, but it's only when you reflect upon the stuff that you see and experience that you learn from it. And then you got to reflect in the right way. You got to reflect in a way that says, okay, not where did he mess up, not where did she mess up, not how did they mess me up, but instead, where could I have made better decisions in this process? And the only way for me to learn from my experience is to see, to reflect upon it, and then watch what he says, and receive what? Let's talk about receiving instruction. I've had a lot of people come into my office for counseling, and as soon as they tell me about this situation, I go to talk to them about it, and they start saying, I know. And then they'll tell me something else. And then they'll say, and I'll go to say something. And they'll say, I know. And then I'll go tell them something else. And they'll say, I know. And I want to go, well, if you know so much, what are we sitting here for? Listen, a lot of us think that the ruin of our lives is what we don't know. I disagree with that. I think for many of us, our detriment is not what we don't know, but instead what we know. We allow what we know to stop us from receiving instruction. And as a result, when we have experiences that don't work out, we reach back to what we've always reached back to, and we can't figure out why we keep getting the same result.
Right now. All right.
You got to get rid of what you know. You got to get some outside advice. If you knew how to fix it, it would be fixed, baby. If you knew how to get it together, it would already be together. Just maybe, buckle up, just maybe, your grandmother had the right intentions but the wrong message.
Okay.
Just maybe, your grandfather wasn't the best example of who you ought to be. Oh, it's quiet now, Rev. But we keep getting messed up because of what we know. And if it ain't working, at some point you got to evaluate it and be ready to receive some more instruction. Next myth I want to get rid of. To know better is to what? Anybody heard that before? Come on. Anybody believe that? Come on, tell me the truth. Y'all cheating. To know better is to do better. It's not true. How you know it ain't true, Pastor? If to know better was to do better, what happened to Adam and Eve in the garden? And then what has happened to every man, woman, boy, and girl, and I did say boy and girl, ever since the garden. If you got kids, you know that this statement ain't true. If you've ever been a kid, you know that this statement is not what? I know it's not, because I remember my mother, y'all know her as Sister Marie, Mama Ree, I know Riri. That's who raised me. And the last thing you wanted to hear Riri say is call your name like, Nathan! You know better. Come here. Oh, God. To know better is not to do better. Because a lot of times, we know better. But the simple truth is, although we know better, it still don't make us what? All of us have had that situation. Somebody's sitting on a situation right now where you going, I knew what? Oh, how did I let myself get there? How did I let myself do that? I know what? Third myth I want to get rid of for the sake of time. And this is the most important one. Listen, if you hadn't wrote anything else down, I want you to write this down. If you don't remember nothing else from this message, I want you to remember this from this message. The third myth says, I'm not getting any younger. Pastor, how is that a myth? It's true. It is true. You're not getting any younger. You're getting old. All right? All of us are getting what? Old. Pastor, I'm young, yeah, but you getting old. Amen. It seems like every day I wake up and find 3 more gray hairs. All of us are growing older. So how is it a myth then, Pastor? Because underlying this statement is the belief that time is not on my side. When we say this statement, what we're saying is time is my enemy as opposed to my friend. And what happens is it causes us to treat situations with emergency. You got to hear me. Every situation that has some urgency is not an emergency. What's the difference? For something to be urgent means that it's important. It means that I need to be timely about how I take care of it. But when something is an emergency, that means code red, code red. Get those chains off those doors. The fire marshal is outside. Just because it needs urgency doesn't mean it's an emergency. Time is not your enemy, it's your friend. And so many times we rush ourselves from one bad situation into another one, and we think that we just keep getting into bad situations. No, it's not that you keep getting into bad situations. The problem is you keep creating them. And the reason why you keep creating them is because in your mind, time is your enemy, and you got to hurry up and do something, so you make a rash decision that later on you say, I should not have made. You jump from one thing into the next thing, and you don't allow yourself any time. I said this before. Listen to me, single people. You would rather be 70 and single than 45 married and miserable. Wow. My single people, they be coming to me, and I hate to be the killjoy, but my single people be coming to me like, Pastor, I found me one. The first thing I always say, I got 3 words for you. I'm happy for you, but I got 3 words for you. Take your time. Time is your friend. Why? Because with time you find out what you need to know. With time you find out what you don't want to know. Take your time. For many of us, we just rush right out of one bad situation into another. When you go through stuff, when life happens, when situations happen where you need a do-over, listen, there's always an emotional component to it. I don't mean like crying, ugly emotion. I mean like hurt. I mean like disappointment. I mean like frustration. I mean like aggravation. That kind of hurt and emotion. And a lot of times what happens is we don't allow ourselves time to get past the emotion. Now watch this. I've said it before. When emotions run high, rationale is the first thing out the window. And so when I'm emotional, I'm not balanced. And so I'm making decisions while I'm hurt. I'm making decisions while I'm disappointed. I'm making decisions while I'm frustrated. And I cannot figure out why I keep making bad decisions. The reason why is because you have to allow yourself some time to get settled, to get your balance back, to allow your mind to clear, get it, and to reflect upon what happened, and to see how I can do it better the next time. Here is it. And receive instruction on what to do to keep it from happening again. But you can't do that if you're thinking, I'm not getting any younger. Another benefit of not believing in this myth. Romans 5:3, I'm going to show you. It says, and not only this, but we also exult in our tribulations. I mean, it's like to be excited about it. We exult. How you exult in your tribulations, bruh? Here's how. Knowing that tribulations brings about what? When you go through a situation where you need to do over, it's a tribulation. And for many of us, we just want to get past the tough stuff. And a lot of times we patch up the tough stuff with a Band-Aid because we don't want to feel that no more. We don't want to experience that no more. And instead, the best thing to do is, for as long as it takes, deal with the tribulation. Why, Pastor? Because tribulations bring about perseverance. What does that mean? That means that this tribulation, if I take my time and deal with it, if I take my time and go through it, it'll prepare me for the next tribulation. Watch what he says next. It says, and perseverance brings proven what? It brings what? Proven what? In the meantime, God did some stuff in my life where he shaped me and molded me, where he built me, he refined me. He got rid of the stuff that he didn't like and the stuff that was messing me up all along. I persevered through it. God built my character. My character is not shaky, but it's proven. And so now I have hope. That only happens when you realize time ain't your enemy. Get it? And when you're willing to wait. You go back to the guy who wrote this, the Apostle Paul. There was a waiting period for him at a point in his life where he needed a do-over. God saved him, and then he sent him to a foreign place to get prepared for what he was about to do with it. You look at people like Moses. Moses killed an Egyptian. He needed a do-over. God sent him into the desert for 40 years to prepare for what he wanted to do with him next, lead the children of Israel out of bondage. You look at David, who was anointed the king of Israel at a very young age. But he didn't actually become the king of Israel until he went through some stuff with the Lord. And it took about 12 to 15 years before he ever realized what Samuel had anointed him for. But in that waiting time, they grew closer to the Lord. And God showed them how he wanted to use what they had been through for his glory and for their good. And as a result of their willingness to wait, their willingness to take the necessary time and wait on the Lord, on the other side of the do-over, God used it. And here we are 2,000 to 3,000 years later, and we still talking about him. Some of you want a legacy, but you don't want to wait the time for God to shape you and mold you into a person of legacy. You got to learn to take a step back, get with the Lord, and see what he's trying to teach you in the season of do-over.
And I pray that the word of God bless you. I pray that it met you right where you are. I pray that as you go throughout the week, that you're reminded of what God said to you this morning. Don't forget, we rely on your support in order to sustain this broadcast. So visit us at myfaithbible.org and click on the giving tab and TV ministry to support this ministry. I cannot wait to see you in one of our services. We're at 1148 North Columbia Street every Sunday morning at 7:45 and 10:45 a.m. Or you can catch us in Slidell at 57209 Allen Road at 9 a.m. Again, that's every Sunday morning. When you're in the area, drop by and visit with us. God bless you. See you right back here, same time next week.